Okay, so the idea is we have our one landscape, and we want to increase the scale of the canvas. Okay, you have one landscape, and you want to have a longer canvas to give you the ability to add more landscapes, so you have a total of 3 landscapes here. So we can go into image, canvas size, and just look at the width that you have. So her width is 30 inches. So we want to have a canvas that's 90 inches. We're just going to multiply it by 3. In the canvas dialog box that pops up, you have this representation that shows a dot and the arrows. The dot is the anchor. It represents the fact that that location is going to stay, and the additional space is going to be added around it. If you click on that grid, let's say you want to have the additional space to be all the way to the right, so you have more space to the right or to the left. You just have to click on a side that you want the space to grow from. So now the right is going to be anchored, and if I add additional width to this, up here I'll create additional width by adding 90 here, so 90 inches. Now it's going to add that additional space to the left because I have it anchored to the right. So when I hit OK, this is what my canvas looks like now. So now I have that additional space, and I can bring in some additional landscapes and start to work in this so I have one long landscape file. So the next step would be to find the other landscapes you want to bring in. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm just going to do a Control A or Command A to select everything, and then Command C, and then go into that long landscape and hit Command V, and it should kind of fall in place, so it looks like it's in where it should be. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to do that to the last one too. So Command or Control A, Command or Control C to copy it, and then go into this long landscape and add it. So
the landscape is supposed to be for the width 3 times
yeah, it's 3 times, right? Because what we're going to do is animate it, and the actual video resolution is just going to be 1/3 of it as well. So we can create the illusion of movement by cutting off, the end point and then animating, so that animation is going to have this landscape scroll past you. And what's nice about it is it kind of gives people like a visual journey as they're watching it. So they're watching the beginning and they see that it's desolate, and then it transitions into this like wooded area, and then it becomes this city of some sort with a population. So it tells a story as it animates. But right now you want to create the background, what in animation you call a cancel. It's like a long image that you're going to have scroll from left to right. So what we want to do though is we want to blend the edges so it's seamless. So right now you have these hard stops, you have these hard vertical lines that separate the images, and that's kind of blaring, it's kind of distracting. So we want to have a nice seamless image, and we can do that by masking. So what I like to do is overlap the images slightly. So I'll grab the last image, have it overlap slightly. You can control click, and that will let you select that layer. So now I have a slight overlap for each one of these. And we're going to add a mask to each one so they blend together. It's actually going to be a combination of masking, and then you're going to refer back to your brushes too, because see how these clouds up here on this image all the way to the right, how they're kind of like more horizontal and stringy, and these clouds are more vertical and they have a different shape to them. Well, maybe some of the stringy clouds blends into this one, and the same way with this one. This one doesn't really have any clouds at all, but maybe some of these more vertical clouds kind of come into this image. So you're going to use your paint brushes to blend things together. For instance, the foreground of this image has a lot of rocks. So maybe a couple rocks kind of carrying into the next image. And the same way with this one. She has these kind of interesting structures. So maybe one of these structures is actually in the third image as well, because that's visually going to connect everything together and make one long cohesive landscape. Same way with the trees and maybe even like the background of the water. So using the brushes, now that you have this toolkit of brushes, using the brushes that you have, you can connect them. But first, I'm just going to go through the process of actually blending the landscapes together. So I have a slight overlap, and then I'm going to go into layers and bring up my layers palette, and I'm going to create masks for each one of these. So I'll just go down and create a mask for the first one, second one, and third one. So now each one has a mask. And so we're going to create a blend for each one. Really the easiest way to do this is with a soft, round brush. So you want a soft, round brush, and you can just paint black along each edge. And that soft, round brush will create a nice like transitional mask between each one. So I'm going to make sure I click on the mask for the first one. Actually, I'm going to start with the one on top. So I'm going to click on the mask, make sure the mask is selected, so those corners are going to have that white corner highlighted, so you know that the mask is selected. I'm going to hit B for brush, and I'm going to go into my brush palette. I'm just going to pick a nice soft brush, scale it up, so I'm going to hit that left bracket key, and then I'll go into Window Brush Settings. I'll just make sure that my brush settings are set properly. So like I can see the brush here has a nice soft edge to it. I will make sure the hardness is set to 0. So that's good. And then what you can do is paint black in here. And I'll zoom in. And you just want like a slight kind of fading of the background. Now what you might have to do is bring the image in more. So I'm going to unlink the mask, use V to get my move tool, and kind of push that image in more. Make sure I have the image selected. So that's good. And now I'm going to go to the next one, the one down below, and do the same thing. So I'm going to use that brush on the mask. So both layers now have like a nice kind of soft mask on the areas that connect. You're going to have to kind of play with it a little bit, kind of move.
So we're blending it in with black, softly?
You're using black because black is what hides in the mask. So that's why you're using black. And you're just kind of painting along the edge.
So we're not using our brushes from assignment 5?
And you are. So
You are?
the other thing you could do now is, now that I have that blended, I can use my brushes now maybe to add some of the detail from one landscape to the other. So for instance, I'm just going to go into the cloud image here and grab some of this cloud using marquee select, and then go to image, or sorry, go to edit and say define brush, hit OK. I'm going to go to a new document. So I'm just making this brush here. So stamp that down. I'm going to invert it. Make another selection. And then define that brush as well. Edit, define brush preset. Call it clouds. Then I'm going to go back into my landscape. And in a new layer, I'll create a new layer on top. And maybe I'll select like a little bit of the color too. So I'll select some of this like pinkish hue. And just paint in some of the cloud. I'm going to just make sure it's on the top layer. And then I'm going to create a mask for that. And then use that original brush I had, which was the soft brush. And kind of mask that in. So I'm kind of using brushes here. So I'm kind of taking a little bit of that cloud and the pink. So I have some of the color transition happening too. You can also use your clone brush. So you can clone. So I'm going to create a new layer, go into the cloning stamping brush down below, the little stamp. And then you turn on, you make sure sample all layers is turned on. So up here it says sample all layers. And in this new layer, what I can do is I can clone maybe some of the elements from one to the next. So I'm cloning maybe some trees from the middle landscape to the other landscape. Maybe one of these boxes, let's say, I'm going to clone over. So the clone, you basically just click what you want to clone by clicking Alt and clicking. And then adding that. And I think I need my brush to be softer. It's a little too hard. So I'm going to shift left bracket and then do that again. So now I have like one of those boxes, you know, in the next landscape there. Maybe like that tower is added here. Kind of adding it right at the transition point. So you kind of see how it's now flowing like from one to the other. So it's a little bit more seamless. Maybe I have more pink from the clouds. So you got some more of that cloud back there. But now I have a flow from one landscape to the other. Do you guys understand how I'm doing this? So it's a combination of techniques too. It's using a little masking for the overlap of the different landscapes. It's using your brushes, maybe to paint some of the brush from the middle landscape into the third landscape. And then use the stamp tool as well to clone things. When you do it though, make sure when you're adding elements from one landscape to the next, do it in a new layer. So you always do it in a new layer, because that way you can mask out it and refine it with a mask. So you're always using another mask to refine it. And that's the general idea. So this is the first step though. After you do this and you blend all three together, what I want you to think about now is foreground, background, and midground. And we're going to separate the foreground, the background, and the midground to create a little shift when we animate it. So that's going to be the next part of it. But do this part first, because this part might take you like the rest of the day. And then next week we'll start to look at creating the layers and talking about animating this. So you have this whole landscape now animating and kind of telling a story as it animates. You know, the scene progresses. Things change as you're going from left to right. So any questions so far? So do the combination.
Do you have video of this?
This will be a video. I'm actually turning this into a video. So I can, like, by the end of class, I can render the video and post the video, and you can watch it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this will be the beginning of assignment 6, which we're going to get into animation. So Good luck. Good night, everybody. Thank you.